Welcome back. According to the Competition Commission's Essential Food Pricing Monitoring Report, food prices are beginning to level off. In March, food inflation was at 5.1%. This was the lowest rate since September 2020. But concerns remain as the rate at which food costs are rising could endanger food security. And joining me now as we dig deeper into the report is Principal Economist at the Competition Commission, Khalirendwe Ranenyeni. Thank you so much for your time. Now, of course, let's start off with the methodology that you used. In your latest report, you talk about a new investigative system called the Early Warning System. What does that investigate and monitor?
So much for having me this afternoon. So our research is really based at we look at prices of seeds or any other commodity. We try to investigate what it costs for a producer to procure those seeds or those commodities. We then check whether the cost is being transmitted to the retailer and therefore to the consumer. So that's what the research is about. So the early warning system is really a methodology in which, without being too technical, it allows us to observe at a point in time what the price at each of those levels that I've just mentioned is, and it compares it to what the price was in the past 6 months. So if that price is higher than the average of the 6 months, then a warning is triggered. That warning is triggered for authorities and regulators to pay attention to that commodity or that food item so that we're able to investigate quite quickly what could be the cost of the margin or the spread that is higher than what was in the last 6 months.
I mean, Khalirendwe, you mentioned that, for example, you look at seeds, but really what are the main food items that you look out for the most in that food basket? I mean, what are the most important indicators here for the direction of food inflation?
So what we've been tracking in the last 3 years, and this started just when COVID hit in 2020, we track the price of bread. We track the price of maize meal, considering maize meal is a staple for South Africans. We track the price of frozen chicken portions. We track the price of sunflower cooking oil. And these were items that there was an outcry during the COVID pandemic, and those were the products that we started tracking. We've now added, as you will see, we've added eggs because of the outcry from last year because of the avian flu. And in our deep dive section, we've now added tinned fish.
Well, actually, just talking about chicken and eggs, of course, you talk about the outcry, the surge in prices that we saw last year because of the outbreak of bird flu. Is there still a lingering price impact there, or has it all been worked out of the system?
So what we do see with eggs, which is quite interesting, is given the flu outbreak, what we saw was an increase in the cost for producers, and this was expected given that it was the breed, the little chicks that and the chickens that lay eggs that were mostly affected with the flu. We saw a lot of imports of chicken coming in, so that kind of soothed the frozen chicken prices. But what we are seeing now is processors have started, their price has started to decline. And we are also seeing retailers absorbing those prices, and their prices are also starting to go down as well. So we are seeing a downward trend on the prices of eggs currently.
Well, actually talking about that absorption, how much of a consideration have producers and retailers actually taken in absorbing some of these high costs that we have seen basically to subsidize consumers?
That is a very interesting question, because we try to check what the margins between the two levels are. So who is making more profit between the processor and the retailer? Unfortunately, our study is limited in the sense that we use publicly available information. This is a research output. We're not investigating a single firm. So we are not privy to details such as which firm is behaving in what way and what costs are they personally, I mean, not personally, they're a firm, are they incurring? And therefore, it's not possible for us to observe. But what we do observe from the spread, which is really the difference between the two margins, is that there has been some absorption. We can't quantify how much of it, because we obviously don't have access to the other cost information that the firms face.
All right. I mean, just also talking about chicken, we know that it is an affordable source of protein. Have there been any shifts that we have seen in consumer preferences in terms of where they get their protein? And also, how is inflation looking there?
So in terms of chicken, what we have seen is there's really been much stability in chicken. There hasn't been a lot of volatility, and I think that's because there was a lot of influx from imports that kind of soothed any price dynamics that would have come from the avian flu outbreak from last year. So that's our observation on chicken prices, both at processing level and at retailing level. In terms of the substitution, that is one of the main observations that we saw in this current edition of our report. We have seen that consumers seem to be substituting away from proteins in general. Our data wasn't disaggregated, so I can't tell you whether they are substituting away from chicken or away from red meat. But what we did see is the tin fish producers have reported increased volumes that they have not seen previously, and they've also reported increased revenue growth. And that is what led us to deep dive into the tin fish value chain to see what is happening there. And what we found there is actually that there's a lot of volatility in terms of global fish prices, and there are a lot of imports coming into South Africa from Namibia and China. But all of that is soothed out. So we're not seeing any price volatility at retail level on tin fish. So similar to eggs, somebody in the value chain is absorbing that cost. So it's either the retailer or the producer. And that's something that we're very, very interested in and very pleased about.
Yeah, well, really, really interesting insights there into the investigation and also the observations that the Competition Commission has made. Thank you so much for your time. That was Principal Economist at the Competition Commission, Khalirendwe Ranenyeni.